Hi everyone, in this video we are going over questions 46 to 54 of ACER's Purple booklet, which is also called Practice Test 2. As always, I'm using the second edition, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please send me an email or go to the website. If you need any extra help, there's lots of resources on the website. Okay, so this is a bit of a tricky unit, mainly because there's a lot of comments that you have to deal with. I'll be honest, I haven't seen units like this in GAMSAT for a while, but I still think it's important that we go over them anyway. So as always, please actually read the stem. So it says the passages below relate to the question, should babies with severe disabilities be allowed to die? Okay, so just think about that for a second. This is all about this topic of infanticide, which is the murder of babies, and that word comes up quite a bit. So that's what it's all debating. It's debating this idea, should babies with severe disabilities be allowed to die? Okay, so we have comments. We have 9 comments. And then if you go to question 46, the question is instantly how many of the comments could be used to support the proposition. Now, in order to answer 46, you have to read all the comments and then decide, are they for or are they against, and then pick the number. That is a very inefficient way of doing this unit because you're going to have to read the comments, make decisions, then go back and read them again. So what I recommend is you actually do these questions out of order. So let's go to 47. The point that the newly born infants do not yet possess a concept of self. If you look at the answer options, you can't answer that without reading the comments. So let's skip 46. I'm going to start with 48. So we're going to do these out of order. We're going to go 48, 49, 52, 51, 50, 47, 53, and then 46. So we're going to do 46 at the very end. Now, the reason I have this second screen up is because as we're reading the comments, we're just going to make a little summary of the comments on this second screen. On the day, you do have paper or you have a whiteboard. So do this on the paper or whiteboard as well, so you can keep track and kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone as you're doing the questions. Now, just before we kick off, just a reminder that for 46, the question is how many of the comments could be used to support, okay? Could be used. So, to support. So that's what we need to really answer when we summarize the comments. The could is quite important. It's not how many of the comments do support or strongly support. It's could be used. In theory, could this argument be used to support? Even if maybe the original author didn't intend for that to happen. Okay, so we're going to start off with question 48. And I've picked 48 because it is about a specific comment. It's about comment 3. So which statement would most effectively counter the point made in comment 3? So comment 3 says, there is a limit to the burden of dependence which any community can carry. If we attempt to keep all handicapped infants alive, irrespective of their future prospects, we'll have to give up other things. Blah, da, 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 da. Basically, it's making a resource argument. It's saying that as society, we have a limited number of resources. If we spend a lot of resources on keeping severely handicapped infants alive, then it means that we don't have enough resources to go into other issues that are also important, okay? So that is the core bit of comment 3. So on my little table over here, comment 1, comment 2, I'm just going to say comment 3, I'm going to say it's a resource argument. And I'm also going to say that it is tick, it's pro, or it could be used to support infanticide because it's saying we don't have enough resources, therefore infanticide, could be justifiable in this situation. Okay, so we're looking for a counterpoint. Now, a good way to do this is just stop, don't even look at the answer options and think, how would I argue against the resources argument? What would I say? So, every infant, no matter how damaged, has a right to live. That's an important argument, but it's irrelevant to comment 3. Comment 3 is not talking about right to life. Comment 3 is talking about resources. So A is irrelevant. B, there's no guarantee that the money saved by infanticide will go to other needy children. This is correct because it directly addresses the resource question, okay? It's directly saying, okay, cool, we save a lot of money by not caring for severely disabled infants. Where is that money going to go? We have no idea. There's no guarantee. Do you see how that's directly countering the resource argument? C, an obligation and priority. That's talking about how we use resources. That's not actually talking about the limited resources. And the first bit, the obligation, the community has an obligation to care for. Again, that does not cover the resource argument. Okay, so that's not directly addressing the comment. And then D is too speculative, because we don't know if it will be more or less cost effective with these legal challenges. So that's why the answer is B. So students get this question wrong because they just pick the strongest argument that they personally think, but they're not actually arguing against comment 3. Comment 3 is specifically talking about resources. So even if you may agree with option A, which is right to life, that's irrelevant in this case because comment 3 is not talking about right to life. Comment 3 is talking about resources. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to question 47. So comment 5 suggests that, question 49, not 47. Yes, we've just done question 48, now we're doing question 49. This is kind of the downside of doing them out of order, is you can get a bit lost. So comment 5, what does comment 5 say? Comment 5 talks about how the response to infanticide is like a visceral reaction like it is to incest or cannibalism. And as a result, it means that it's a taboo topic and people don't talk about it. So that's the main point. So let's just start off with the summary. So for comment 5, I would say just like taboo. And then I'd say, could this be used to support the idea of infanticide? And I'd say, yes, it could be used to support that idea. Okay, so now we go to question 49. So comment 5 suggests that A, philosophers have no role in infanticide. No, comment 5 is critiquing the response of philosophers, not necessarily their role. They accept that the role is relevant, but they're just critiquing the response. So it's not A. B, incest, cannibalism, infanticide are irrational practices. Again, the issue with comment 5 is that it's a taboo, not the practice itself. So it's saying these practices we as society see them as taboo, and it's not really touching on whether or not the practices themselves are okay. So it's not B. Cultural taboos are irrational and therefore should not be taken seriously. That is the correct answer. Again, it's talking about the taboos. And then D, it's infanticide can neither be defended nor challenged on moral grounds. That is incorrect because it's saying that we need rational grounds for the debate, not moral grounds. So that is why C is the correct answer. Okay, we're going to skip 50 because the answer options are comments that we haven't read yet. So we're going to skip 50 and we're going to go to 51. We're going to skip 51 again and we're going to go to 52. So it is a little bit out of order. It can get a little bit tricky, but hopefully you're able to follow. And the reason we're going to 52 is because, again, it's asking us about a specific comment. It's asking about comment 8. So 7, 8. Okay. Which of the following parental decisions in favour of infanticide appears to be a logical extension of comment 8? So let's go to comment 8. Comment 8 tells us, even when in the interest of the child, parents allow their terribly afflicted child to die, they nevertheless signal that they do not want this child. So they do. That's the key point. They do not want this child. Once it is considered morally permissible to kill the child that's not wanted, then it's a short step for killing infants. They have nothing to do with compassion. So what is comment 8 saying? It's all about, let's say, want of child. I'll just write the word want. Does it support or does it oppose? It very strongly opposes, so it gets an X. Okay, so if we go back to the question says, which one is a logical extension? Okay, so A, we live in an isolated region where medical services are minimal. That's incorrect. That's a resource argument. And if we remember, comment 3 is our resource argument. That's making a resource argument. B is also making a resource argument because they're saying we can't guarantee the quality of life. We may not have the resources. We cannot guarantee that. C, unable to meet this baby's special needs. Again, that's a resource argument. So that's why B and C are also wrong. And then D, we can only afford to look after one child and we wanted a boy, okay? It's got the word wanted in there. That ACE has been quite nice by giving you the word wanted, to be honest. That's very clearly the answer option. Okay, great. So now we've done those ones. Now we're going to go backwards. So let's go to 51. Which of the following statements best sums up the relationship between comment 1 and comment 6? We haven't touched on comment 1 or comment 6 yet. So let's go up and let's read them. And whenever you have a compare or contrast, we love to make a table. Again, you can do it on your whiteboard and rub it out later. So, comment 1 says, from the moment of conception, the fetus is a living being and its right to life must be safeguarded. The fact that newly born infants do not possess a concept of self simply means the burden of protection is all greater. So, first of all, let's summarize it. So I'm just going to say right to life. And is it pro or is it against? It's very strongly against. Okay, so then let's have a look at comment 6. An organism possesses a serious right to life only if it possesses a concept of self. Okay, and as a continuing subject of a newborn infant does not have this concept of self. So 6, I'm going to say self. And it gets a tick because it can be used to support. And then I'll just note that 1 and 6, I'm going to write S, that's similar. Okay, so what do they agree with? They both agree that newly born infants do not have a concept of self. So S question mark is just my way of saying, do they have a concept of self? Both the comments agree that a newly born infant does not have a concept of self. However, they disagree when it comes to protection. So I'll put a P and a question mark for protection. Comment 1 says, because it doesn't have a concept of self, we need to protect it more, so it gets a tick. Whereas comment 6 says, it doesn't have a concept of self, therefore it doesn't need protection. You kind of extrapolate that. So sometimes drawing a table like that can help you. If it doesn't help you, that's also totally fine. You don't have to do it. Okay, so A, comment 1 is a point of view, while comment 6 is a neutral statement. Wrong. They are both opinions. Neither of them are neutral. B, comment 1 differs from 6 in relation to what properties a newborn infant is said to have. That's wrong because, as we see, they both agree that newborn infants do not have a concept of self. C talks about right to life. That is the correct answer because they agree that because that's kind of the whole debate about right to life, concept of self. And if we look at our little summary over here, then that's exactly what I've summarized here. And then D, importance of self-consciousness as defining characteristic of being a person. That's wrong because, again, we're talking about concept of self, first right to life, and concept of self and self-consciousness are kind of different things. So that's why the answer is C. So they are similar. There are differences in them, and this is where sort of identifying that nuance comes in, which is what makes it a harder question. Okay, so now we're going to go to question 50. So we're working backwards. Okay, so there are some things that are moral absolutes. Opposition to infanticide is one such thing. Which of the following offers the best rebuttal to this point of view? So we have comment 2, which we haven't read yet. Comment 4, which we also haven't read yet. Comment 6, which we have read. And then comment 7, which we also haven't read yet. Okay, so this is why it's good to do it backwards, because it means that now all I have to do is read comment 2, 4, and 7, because I've already read comment 6 and I know sort of where comment 6 stands. So let's go read 2, 4, and 7. Comment 2. Most people would prefer to raise children who do not suffer from physical or emotional handicaps. If people's emotional objections to infanticide could be overcome through rational debate, then happiness of society could be significantly increased. So what's the point of comment 2? It's sort of about having a rational debate. Emotion versus ration. So I'll just do E versus R. Does it support? It could be used to support. Yes, it could be used to support. Comment 4 is talking about, since all human life is of equal worth, talking about equality. So I'm just going to do an equal sign. Does it support or is it against? It is against. And then comment 7 talks about how, civilized society is really just a social construct. So there have been many societies that have not shared a Western belief in the sanctity of human life and who have a strong claim to the label civilized as our own. So if you're a bit confused by what that's saying, it's just saying that, we in the West see certain things and certain practices as being civilized. But in other cultures and societies, they may have other practices which we may see as uncivilized, but in reality, that culture is also civilized. And a good way to think about this is just to look at history. When the British came to Australia, Captain Cook, they saw the Indigenous Australians who were living a very different life to what was in the West and in Europe, and they immediately saw them as uncivilized because of their practices. But that doesn't actually mean that they were uncivilized. It just means that they were different. And they would argue that the way that they live is civilized and that the way that the Europeans lived was uncivilized. So the idea of what a civilized society is changes across the world and across cultures and across societies. And really, the word civilized is just like a social construct that people give to themselves. So question 7, I'm going to just say civilized. Can it be used to support? Yes, it can. Okay, so now we've pretty much done all the comments. So let's go back to 50. There are some things that are moral absolutes. Opposition to infanticide is one such thing. What is the rebuttal? The rebuttal is comment 7, which is answer option D. Why? Because of the words moral absolutes. Again, what it's saying, comment 7 is saying just because something is moral in one society doesn't mean it's moral in another society. Because it depends on what the society is, what the culture is, etc., etc. And so comment 7 is the rebuttal saying, well, who defines what moral is? Who defines what a civilized society is? So that's why the answer option is D. Okay, we're almost there. Now we're going to get to question 47. So which statement would effectively counter the point made in comment 3? At this stage, you shouldn't have to go back and read the comments because you should know that comment 3 is the resource comment. Because if you vaguely remember, it says something about we don't have enough resources, for this. So, question 47. Just make sure I'm looking at the right one. Nope, sorry, that was answering question 48. This is the problem of doing it backwards. Okay, question 47. The point that newborn infants do not yet possess a concept of self. Okay. Same point still stands though. You shouldn't need to go back and read the comments. We should be able to answer this directly. A is challenged by comment 9. Okay, I take that back. We haven't actually read comment 9 yet, so we're going to go read comment 9, which just talks about an individual who he's disabled or differently abled, but has still been able to study, travel, marry, and now work. So that's just, I'll just write disability. And it is against. Okay, so it's challenged by comment 9. No, even though comment 9 is against infanticide, it doesn't actually touch on the point of concept of self. B explicitly opposes the practice of infanticide. No. Or C explicitly supports the practice of infanticide. No. B and C are both wrong because if you remember back to question 51, this is exactly what comment 1 and 6 are getting into. Okay? So we know that the concept of self is used both for and against infanticide. So it can't be B or C. And then D is relevant to both sides of the infanticide debate. Yes, 47. That is the correct answer for D. So do you see how by kind of doing it backwards, we can very quickly get to the answer for 47? Whereas if you had done it in the correct order, you would get to 47 and you would just be stuck because you'd have to go back through and reread all the comments and you'd have to read them in a different way, which can be quite confusing. Okay, so now we're going to jump down to question 53. Which of the following statements could be best described as a matter of fact rather than a matter of opinion? Okay, so fact versus opinion. A, infanticide is morally acceptable practice in some cultures. Yes, that's exactly what comment 7 is referencing. The civilized comment debate. So A is the correct answer. B, it's not incompatible with Christianity. That's more of an opinion. Needs stringent legal safeguards, also an opinion. And is a human rights case, also an opinion. Okay, now we're going to get to question 46, finally at the end. So, and this one is quite easy because all we have to do is count up the ticks. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks, which means that the answer option is B. Okay, and again, it's could be used. It's not necessarily does it fully support, it's could be used to support this debate. And this is why comment 2, which throws a lot of students, could be used. So I'm going to go over it. Comment 2 is talking about if people's emotional objection to infanticide could be overcome through rational debate, then happiness of society could be significantly increased. Okay, so comment 2 doesn't actually come down strongly on pro or like for or against infanticide. All it's saying is that if we can debate this through rational debate, then happiness of society could be increased. But it's not telling you what the outcome of that debate is. It's not necessarily saying we debate it and we decide yes, or we debate it and we decide no. It's just saying, let's just debate it rationally, and then we could come to a conclusion that happiness of society could be increased. So that's the reason why comment 2 is included in this, and I bring that up because I've had a lot of students who are very confused specifically about comment 2, so I just wanted to touch on that. Okay, now we get to question 54. So question 54, as a doctor, it's extremely hard to give up on a baby, but I worry about da-da-da-da. Which of the following appears to be least influential in shaping the speaker's view? Least influential. So that's very nice of ACER to even bold it for you. So the speaker is the doctor. So what is the doctor concerned about? They're concerned about themselves. I worry, but I worry about keeping. The baby, an infant alive who will impose such a devastating and emotional financial burden to his family. And then they're saying, what right do I have? Okay, so they're concerned about themselves and the family and their role. What they are not concerned about is actually the rights of the infant. So that's why the answer is B. So A, they're concerned about the welfare of the family. Yes, because it specifically talks about emotional financial burden. C, own feelings of a human being. Yes, what right do I have to make decisions? Then D, sense of duty as a doctor. So the speaker is concerned about everything apart from the rights of the infant, which is why the answer option is B. Okay, hopefully you followed that. I know that was a very long and confusing video. Like I said, I haven't seen questions like this in the GAMSAT for a while, but it's a good strategy to use, particularly when you have a whole bunch of quotes and comments. If you hate this approach, fair enough. You can then just read all the comments at the beginning and make a summary table like this as well. But if you are going to do that, I would actually recommend reading through the questions first, so you kind of know what you're looking for when you read all the quotes at the beginning, because I know it is a bit confusing jumping around, and as you saw, even I got confused at one point between what question I was answering. Okay, I will see you in the next video.